Welcome to the Big Idea to Bestseller podcast. We got an awesome guest, or as I should say, a possum guest, and you'll understand where this all comes from. But we have the author of the book, Stop Training Your Dog, Jaime Caponetta, in the house. Jaime, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, this is amazing. And for those that are watching, you're gonna have this awesome background that you get to see. I'm almost matching with Jamie's background. But for those of you that are just listening, well, you just got to imagine that behind her is this incredible, I'll call it a mural called Possum University, which is her brand. So
Yeah.
Jamie, let's start there. Let's start there. What made you want to create a book around dogs, and how did it come to be?
Yeah, so it's actually it's one of those like magical stories. It really is. I didn't even know that I wanted to write a book until about a year ago. And long story short, I grew up not doing well in school. I just was like maybe even under average student, I'll say that. And it was always a struggle because my sister was so smart. I mean, I always say she read the longest Harry Potter in one night. And I'm sitting there I'm like 15 reading at a third grade level. I'm like, what is this? I got a little screwed here in terms of genetics. And lo and behold, when I was 20 in college, I actually got tested and I am dyslexic. And so I struggled my whole life and I didn't have to, so to speak. So I think the school system kind of failed in that. Nobody really picked up on it. But about a year ago, I went to the Empower Her podcast conference with my friend. She was like, just come with. And I went, and there was this woman there, who you're very good friends with, I heard, that did I don't even know what to call it, like a mentorship, but it was like this walkthrough of like meditation and like tapping into like your younger child. And like I had told my friend Kelly before we went on this trip, I haven't cried in a really long time. Like abnormally long for a female to not cry, especially when having two young children, you think you'd cry more. I just haven't cried. And she's like, yeah, you should work on that. So we do this meditation, and by the end of it, I am sobbing uncontrollably. I'm like, what is happening? Shut it off. I don't know what to do here. And basically, the meditation was, if you could talk to your younger self and have a conversation with them, what is like the one thing that you haven't done that you would like to tell them that you did, that you would be proud of?
Mm.
And for some weird reason, writing a book popped into my head and I just couldn't stop crying. It was horrible and good at the same time. So I knew right then that I obviously needed to write a dog training book. And I had been a trainer at that point. I started in 2016. So had a couple years under my belt and really love what I do. I really am like more in like the rescue aspect and like keeping dogs in their homes and treating them properly and advocating for them. And when this book kind of came into my head, I was like, okay, obviously there's a message I need to get out there. And I stood up in front of like, I want to say she had over 1,000 people there. And I said I was going to write this book because I knew if I didn't stand up and say it, I wouldn't have done it. And lo and behold, your friend came to me and said, listen, I know Jake, you should reach out to Jake. And I did. And by the time I was off that airplane coming back to Jersey, I had already had like a call set up with you. And it kind of just all fell into place. And that's, for me, that's when I know things are supposed to happen. If they fall into
Yeah.
place, not hard.
Yeah. I got so many things that I want to ask you about everything, but let's go to this, which I think is a great next step. So you have this epiphany, we'll call it. You have this
Yeah.
conversation. You're
Yeah.
like, I'm going to do this book. But you also, you had mentioned that the school system, you felt like it failed you with your dyslexia.
Mhm.
Talk to me about the mental side of that when you're about to write your own first book. Like, was
Yeah.
there hesitation around that? Was there like, I got it? Was it like, let me just trust your team? Like, what was going through your head that you felt you had to either overcome or that you had to really just silence old thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's the latter, what you just said at the end there. I think it was a lot of, because I had the epiphany, and I've always believed like if it's in you, it's for you. Like once I said it, I was like, I have to do it. So it doesn't matter if I can or can't. I'm doing it anyway, because that's just the kind of person I am. Um, blessing and a curse, I'll say. Um, I'm one of those wives that if I have like a thing in the house that needs to be fixed, I have to do it that weekend or it doesn't. Yeah, it's one of
Yep.
those things. So yeah, at first I was like, oh my God, can I do this? You definitely have those things in the back of your head of like, is this even possible? Will this be super hard? Like, how long will this take? But honestly, once we all got on the call together and you talked about the process, I was like, you know what? I don't think this is going to be as hard as I think it's going to be. I think just growing up with that expectation of the fact that I wasn't that smart, right? That I was that story that I was telling myself, you're not smart. It wasn't true. It was just, what I was told my whole life.
Hmm.
So really just having the support from your team and knowing that I am an expert in what I do. If I can be an expert in real life and I'm confident in my job and what I do, why can't I write a book? It's
Mm.
just the learning curve of how to write a book. That was really my biggest thing. It wasn't the thing that I wanted to write about. It was like, how do I write it in a way that other people will read and like it? Right. So that
Yeah.
was the biggest thing. And I have to say, Adrienne, oh my God, I love her. She was the best. What's her title? I can't remember what her title is.
Writing coach.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, she sat me down. She was like, all right, tell me everything. And I just word dumped on her and she just organized everything. And I was like, see how easy that was?
Yeah.
And it made the process so much easier for me. Like I couldn't have done that part on my own. I would have been, and I think the biggest thing for me in my writing my whole life is I've always skipped around when I'm writing because my
Mm.
brain, because of the dyslexia, my brain goes all over the place and I'm not organized because I think I have this I don't want to say embarrassment or like I guess insecurity of the fact that I don't know what I'm doing, so I
Sure.
jump too much. So when she, made my outline for me, it was bliss. It was perfect. It was exactly what I needed. And I think I did another podcast very recently with like four other or three other women who were writing books. And I was the only one that was finished. And two doctors. Like I did it quicker, and I'm sure their books are obviously a little bit more detailed and stuff, and they have to really check their facts. But they were struggling a lot because they are highly intelligent women. They've been titled as highly intelligent women.
Mm.
I almost think it was a disservice because I was, like, oh, I'm just coming in this at a lower level. I actually got it done a lot quicker because I didn't have the perfectionist issue in my mind. And that was something that we
Mm.
talked about on that podcast. And she was like, yeah, like the way that you're talking, it just seems like you're having such an easy time writing it. And I'm severely struggling over here because I'm thinking about how people are going to judge me. And I didn't have that. I didn't have that
Mm.
because it didn't matter. It wasn't
Yeah.
something I struggled with my whole life. I wasn't looked at as the smart girl. So I didn't have to really
Mm.
prove anything, so to speak. So I
Yeah.
think it actually worked for me
Yeah.
way more than I thought it would.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so here let's go even further here because I think that there's a lot of people when they come to writing a book, they do struggle on kind of the topic, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we see is like which topic to choose or I'm not an expert enough in something. Like what makes me an expert? You
Mhm.
knew you're an expert in training dogs. You knew you're an expert. You have Possum University. You
Yeah.
have the your shit dialed in. Okay. What for everyone out there that's like debating or thinking that they're too niche, what gave you the confidence to say, no, I'm writing a book on this topic and it's going to be damn good. And now that it's out, it is damn good and people are loving it. Walk me through
Yeah.
that.
So there was a period when I sat down with Adrienne, I was like, what do I want the topic to be? Because dog training can be very broad. It can be extremely broad. But what makes me different from other trainers is that I do behavioral work that is all positive reinforcement.
Mm.
So it is science-based, first off, but it also is tailored with extreme emotion on both sides, human and dog. And that is what I talk about in the entire book. So the one thing that tailors all of the different topics together, because it actually, I didn't plan this. And even my husband, when he finally read the book, he was like, oh my God, you put everything in here. And I was like, oh yeah, no, I just word vomited. Everything that was in my brain is now in this book. Like I didn't leave anything out. And that's why it's so long because I just couldn't stop writing. And he was so surprised. He's like, I didn't think you were going to touch on every single dog topic. But the one thing that ties it together is the emotional that
Mhm.
part
Yeah.
of being human and having the relationship with your dog, and what is wrong in our society right now, what people are doing and why they're struggling because they're doing this one thing wrong. They're not tapping into the emotions. They're not treating dogs like they're children. And that is the biggest thing, is kids and dogs are exactly the same, except
Yeah.
that kids eventually can speak and dogs can't. That's really the only difference. The emotions are the same. The learning aspect is the same. The learning time frame, 2 to 3 years old, dogs never exceed that. And that is what I explained throughout the entire book. Like, we want all these amazing things from our dogs when we put in half-ass training and half-ass emotional connection. We're asking for so much with giving little. And that is why all these different topics struggle: guarding,
Mhm.
reactivity, separation anxiety, not being good with babies and kids, just all potty training, right? We get so frustrated. I have people contact me. They're like, my dog is 3 months old and they're not potty trained yet. Oh, yeah, because you have an infant. Where did you hear that 3-month-old puppies should be potty trained? Like, where did you hear that?
Yeah.
So it touches on a lot of like realism. Like, I want the world to know, like, these are the things that you should expect. And if you're not getting these things, or you want more in a moment, you have to look within, not at the dog.
When you're training dogs, right? And you mentioned
Yeah.
kids and dogs, do you think people, so like I'm getting married in November, okay?
Congrats.
And we're obviously, thank you. We're gonna think about, starting our family
Yeah.
eventually. Do you have any opinions? Because I know could be controversial, of kids first, dogs first. Which one comes
Absolutely have an
first? And
opinion. Of
and
course.
and what? How early should one come before the other? I would love to hear your opinion as a future dog owner and a future parent, hopefully.
So I will say, I treat my dogs and my kids exactly the same.
Okay.
Exactly the same, as if my 3 dogs I have birthed myself. Because first off, 2 out of the 3 were here first. Okay.
Okay.
The pity came in when my first child was around 8 months old. So he really only still knows her anyway. But let's say Oakley, my big dog, he's about 90 pounds, sweetest dog in the world, literally a therapy dog for children and older people. If he is sitting on the couch and my 4-year-old wants him to move, I tell him absolutely not. Oakley was there first. Sorry, buddy. Like, he is there. If you were laying down and Oakley wanted to get into his spot, I wouldn't make you move either, because you were there first. So I'm teaching him boundaries. I'm teaching my kids boundaries, because honestly, there's like a lot of studies and stuff on kids learning empathy at an earlier age than really their brains are programmed to do so. Like, kids really don't learn proper empathy until like 5 to 7 years old.
Mm,
But we expect our kids to share and identify when other people are upset younger than that. We get really frustrated with our toddlers, and it's like, no, they just don't, their brains aren't doing that. They're not there. They're worried about themselves.
interesting.
That's the whole thing. And if I can communicate this at a much younger level for my toddlers, of saying, no, Oakley matters, Pudge matters, Pudge is the 12-pound Chihuahua. She is the one I talk about a lot in the book, because when it comes to kids, they see this tiny little cute thing and they're like, ooh, let me smother that. And that is the opposite of what Pudge wants. She does not
Mm,
want to be smothered whatsoever. And JJ really struggled with that from, like, I want to say 18 months to 3, where he thought it was funny to make her growl. And she is so tolerant. But just because she is tolerant, it's one of the biggest things I talk about in the book. Just because she is tolerant doesn't mean that she should have to tolerate it.
mm.
Okay. That happens a lot. I see, all over social media, YouTube, all these videos of dogs being crawled on by these toddlers. And it's like, look how cute it is. It's not cute. That dog is mortified. That dog does not want it. I guarantee it. There's probably maybe 5% of dogs that actually like when a kid is playing with them in that manner. They
Mm.
are very non-confrontational beings. So they'll do a look to the side, they'll lick their lips. And for me as a trainer, I see it and I'm like, that dog is so uncomfortable. But they'll probably never say, because they're terrified to speak up and they don't want to start a problem. But in reality, the parent's like, oh, it's fine. It's fine, until the kid gets bit and now it's the dog's fault. And it's like, no, these were all these non-verbal communications that humans have missed because we are programmed to miss them. We are programmed to
Mm.
say that dog is unpredictable. No, that dog is not unpredictable. You are just not listening to the nonverbal signs, until the point where the dog absolutely lost it and felt threatened enough to land a bite. And for when it comes to my kids and my dogs, my biggest thing is my children growing up knowing how to treat animals, any creature, and humans correctly, and to respect boundaries, to stand up for themselves, obviously, but also you need to, that's the biggest thing I think that our society struggles with is other people's boundaries
Yeah.
and their feelings. And it all ties in. So if I can help my children at such a young age understand these dogs matter. I keep telling JJ he's 4. I say, it's not the JJ show. It's not just about what JJ feels. Everybody else here matters. And it's a
Yeah.
struggle. And he's going to learn a lot younger than, say, a kid that doesn't have a dog in the house.
Totally.
Or a parent that is pushing that and letting him know, like, just because you want something doesn't mean you automatically get it because you exist.
Yeah.
And, I think a lot of parents are like, no, it's, if my dog growls at my baby, the dog is out. And it's like, okay, but why was your dog even put in the situation that they had to growl at your baby?
Yeah.
You're a parent. You're supposed to step in and make sure that that never even comes up. I mean, yes, we are human and imperfect, and these things do happen. But just because your dog is uncomfortable doesn't mean that they need to leave the family, right? We have to make sure that
Yeah.
our baby is young, that we are setting the standard that our dogs are safe. We're going to keep our dogs safe. And that's our
Mm.
job as a parent. If you want to be a lazy parent, that's another story. Then
Right.
don't have dogs, right? I always tell
Right.
people, no one is making you have a dog. I put it in the book. If you cannot handle what comes with a dog, don't get a dog. No, it's not forced by the government. No one's telling you you need a dog. If
Right.
you don't want to do XYZ, don't get a dog. It's okay.
Yeah.
No one's going to push you. If anything, will praise you for making that decision because you can't handle it. And that's okay. Right. So I think a lot of times in our society, when we look at dogs, we just think, especially around children, they should just tolerate whatever. And that's just not the case. And
Mm.
that's really that's why a lot of you see in the news, oh, dog bites kid out of nowhere. It's not out of nowhere,
Mm.
ever.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I never really thought about it this way, to be honest,
Yeah.
because I haven't had a dog as an adult or for my own family. Like, so it's very
Mhm.
interesting as you talk about it. Let's say someone just gets a new dog. They got a puppy. They're
Yeah.
excited. They did
Yeah.
make the choice to get a dog. How much time, right, do you think? Because I'm sure there are some differences, right? Humans and dogs,
Mhm.
but how much time when someone gets a puppy do you encourage them to be spending to develop that connection, as your subtitle says, beyond the commands, right?
Yeah.
Like, and to fully make sure that the dog is ready, potty trained, able to handle, sit, come, whatever it is.
Yeah.
How much time do you typically recommend people to do when you are working with them?
So it's a really good question. It's kind of twofold. So it doesn't need to take time. It doesn't have to be hours a day. That is a big misconception of like, oh, you need to train your dog 2 hours a day. I think that's total BS. And I say it to all my clients. Now, the expectation is that your life is going to change just like having a baby.
Mm.
Okay. You have a baby, you're going to be up in the middle of the night, changing diapers and feeding. You just know that. The expectation with a puppy is similar. You want to crate train, you're going to potty train, they're going to have to go to the bathroom. That doesn't mean that your dog is not potty trained. That is the expectation of their age. That is what you are agreeing to deal with. Right. And I don't think that that translates for a lot of people. But like when you
Mm.
think of having a baby, you're like, oh, of course I'm going to be up in the middle of the night.
Right.
That's just what comes with it. But I don't think that's what is thought of when you get a puppy. Puppies are a lot of work. They are. Now, is it forever? No, it's the same thing with a newborn. You get out of that newborn stage faster than you expect. When you're in it, you're like, oh my God, this is lasting forever. But then when you're out of it, you're like, oh my God, I kind of missed that a little bit. I think it's very similar with puppies. The only difference is that babies come out and they're not mobile until 6 to 8 months. So you're good. You can put them in a bassinet, go take a shower. But if you're not crate training a puppy or have like a good, if they're struggling with separation anxiety, you can't go take that shower. You don't feel, you're going to feel tied to that puppy. You're going to feel a lot more frustrated than you would with a newborn because it's just a different situation. They come out the womb ready to go. They're walking on 4 legs, just like ready to tear up your
Yeah.
house. Babies are a little bit easier in the beginning because they don't move. So it's slightly different. And you will spend more time parenting in the beginning with a puppy than say a newborn. But I will equate a new, like a brand new puppy, 2 months old, to a toddler, because toddlers you're constantly parenting. But
Mm,
I wouldn't say, oh, I need to make sure I put 3 hours of work into my toddler a day. I am constantly parenting, but in a way that works for my lifestyle,
yeah.
right? Like I'm parenting as I go. And I'm not thinking about the fact that, oh my
Mm,
God, I parented too much today. I got to turn it off. Right. And I think that's another misconception with dogs is like,
yeah.
oh, 3 hours and we're training with cues constantly. Right. I'm saying beyond commands. I don't like to say commands because to me, they're cues. I'm asking you to do something. A command is I'm demanding you to do something, which
Mm,
is not what I go for in relationships. Cause like, would I want my husband to demand me to do something? No, he's going to ask me nicely to do something whether it's respect his boundary or get a task done in general for the greater good of our family. And that feels a lot better than him demanding me to do that, right?
sure.
Same thing with our dogs. So if all you're focusing on is obedience with our dogs, yeah, you're gonna fail. Right. I'm gonna say it right off the bat. That's what everybody thinks. Oh, I want obedience class. I want to go, I want my dog to be able to do this and sit and give paw and all that. None of that matters. None of it. Is
Yeah.
it great to have? Sure. But that is not going to fix any of the topics that I go over in this book that are the biggest things that people come to me with. Learning to sit will not teach your dog to potty train and understand that going to the bathroom outside is the best thing to do. It will not fix your dog having fearful emotions towards other dogs, right? Obedience cues won't fix that because I always say to people, like, being really good at math doesn't help me not get into a fight with my husband. They're apples and oranges. So if I want my dogs to love other dogs, love children, love strangers, walk well on a leash, I have to connect with them emotionally to get
Mm,
there. Okay.
mm,
None of that will happen because I tell them to sit and stay. If anything, it'll just increase anxiety because they're like, you keep asking me to do things and I cannot function right now. So I actually hate
mm.
this situation. It's creating a negative association for them versus you're really good at this cue. You should be able to do it no problem. It
It's
doesn't add up.
it's really interesting hearing you talk about all of these things related to dogs and the comparisons and the analogies. Because
Yeah.
I do think that there's a difference in how we perceive getting a puppy or getting a dog and
Yeah.
like the required work, right? And how
Yeah.
it's people are like, well, it's this many hours you need to train your dog, 20 minutes a day. Well, maybe it's 20 minutes a day, but it's more about, like you're saying, you got to parent the dog, right? You're a dog
Yeah.
parent. Very, very fascinating. I'm really interested in a lot of this. So,
Yeah.
talk to me about this though. We've talked a lot about newborns as well, puppies, newborns. Now, you wrote this book during a pregnancy,
Yes.
right? So we got to talk about this because I got to just give you huge kudos, right? You
Thank
got
you.
young kids at home, you got dogs, you're running a business, you're building a family, and you are pregnant. So how did this impact your ability to get the book done? Was there like, gosh, I'm pregnant. I'm starting this book when I'm pregnant. I need it to be done before I have my kid. Like, what was that thought process like for you? And was there like a race before birth? Like, talk to me about that because
Yeah.
it's a heck of a cool story.
Yeah. So I wanted to do because it was funny when I was pregnant. Was I pregnant during COVID? No. Once JJ was born, COVID hit. And we were home. We were home and no one was working. And I was like, I really wish that I would have done this then. Like when no one was functioning. I was just home. I could have got so much done. And nobody was prepared, obviously, so nobody knew these things were happening. But I was like, why not do it while I'm pregnant? Because I'm gonna have less energy to do physical work. So why not do it when I can just sit in front of the computer screen? So it actually worked out really well. And I do believe that the race to get it done before this baby comes was key because I think I would have procrastinated. I think I would have been like, oh no, I have time. It's no big deal. And honestly, I think it worked out a lot better because I stayed a lot more focused, which again, because of my learning and reading disability, staying with it more consistently was the best because a lot of times when I get something out on paper, I forget what I've said. So
Mm,
I would have had to go back and like reread the chapter. If I stopped, I would have been like, okay, did I say this already? I don't remember because I say these things a lot during the day. So I would have had to go back and reread and taken more time. And that was not the case because I was writing so fluently. I was like, no, I wrote that yesterday. I'm good. Now I will say the only way that I was able to get this done with a 4-year-old and 2-year-old downstairs was because I have a very supportive husband. and I talk about this in the book, is like if you are not marrying someone that you absolutely adore and that adores you right back, and no matter what bad day you are having, still thinks that the sun shines out your butt, you're in the wrong relationship. And there are so many things that you need to discuss before you get married to make sure that you are with the right person, because love
Mm,
is not enough. It is not. You need to make sure that you have the same ideas, and be okay with that person changing their ideas, but in a way that still fits you in some sort of way, growing together. Um, he allowed me to do this because otherwise I don't think it would have been possible. He is a millennial dad. I actually made a post on Instagram not too long ago about millennial dads, because say what you want about millennials, but we are a different breed of human. These dads are changing diapers. They know feeding schedules. They know who's allergic to what. They know when the child goes to bed, what the routine is, where all their pajamas are. And that was, I mean, like, I love my father. My father is a fabulous father, but he worked 40-hour weeks. And my mom worked part-time and took care of it. She was home before we got off the bus. And
mm,
she did all that stuff. And he helped, of course, but it was different. He'll admit to it. He's like, no, it was just different times. The dads didn't do that much, you know? And I just think that because he is who he is as a dad, he is so active. And most of the time, they prefer my husband over me when they're scared or they're sad, which is an amazing feeling as a mom, that there is somebody else that can take that off your chest, and
yep.
not, it's not constant where the kids are like on me.
Sure.
It is so nice to have, and I would not have been able to write this book
Mm,
without him. I wouldn't have been able to stay on the schedule that I did
yeah.
if he didn't know everything that I know as a parent. So
Yeah.
I think that's very important.
Yeah. Kudos to him. And you did this pretty quickly too, right? You
I
did it
got it done a lot quicker than I thought I was going to get it done.
which is awesome because you were pregnant, you had a lot of
Yeah.
things going on, and you still got this book done. So I want to celebrate a little bit. Your book's out. It
Yeah.
crushed. Talk to me about what did it feel like to launch the book? What are some things that happened during launch week? What are some of the wins that you've experienced early on since this book's been released in the past month or so?
I think this one's also twofold. Like, it's kind of like when you get married and everyone's like, oh, how's married life? I kind of feel like the same person, but that I also have this new big thing. So it's like,
Yep.
I don't feel 100% different, but it is this really awesome thing that I'm still, constantly working at and talking about and, getting out in the world. So it feels amazing. It feels very much so an accomplishment. It is weird when you don't like bragging about yourself, to bring up the fact that you wrote a book. It's a little strange. Like, yeah, I wrote a book. But it's amazing, and it's such a great talking point, and for people to talk about and bring up. And I think the coolest thing is like people coming out of the woodwork and being like, within the first week I read your book and it was amazing. Like,
Mm,
that is really cool. That people are saying, I couldn't put it down. I love how you spoke about this. I love someone said, quote unquote, I love your voice in this. And I was like, wow, like the fact that someone even is saying that about me, who again, I
right.
thought I'd never be able to write a book. And so that is really cool. It's like, people reading what's been in my head for years and enjoying it and not being able to put it down is, I think, a huge win.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So this has been awesome. Great conversation. How do we learn more about you? How do we learn
Yeah.
more about the programs that you do? Because I know you have a bunch of different ways that you teach people.
Yes.
And how do we get the book? Tell us where to go and what you offer.
Yeah. So the book is on Amazon. You can purchase it right there. Where to find me? So this is a really good question. We have changed things up as I was writing this book, we completely changed course in terms of the business. So Possum University is now going to be John, my husband. He is going to take that over. He is still kind of up in the air of where he's going with this. We're more so focusing on my direction right now. So Possum University is somewhat on hold, but if you want to learn more about us in general, how I train, we have a podcast called the Podcast for Dog People. So that's where you can find all of our old stuff. There's tons of really good free information on there about dog training in general. Now, for me, what I am doing, I am niching down completely, and I'm just focusing on the two things that make me happy, is working with babies, dogs, and kids. So now you can go to jamiecaponetta.com and find all my stuff. Now, my first name is spelled strangely. It is Jaime, JAIME at or .com for my website, but my new Instagram is now at Jamie the dog trainer. Again,
Right.
JAIME. So that is all about dogs and babies, toddlers, getting dogs to like kids so you don't have to rehome your dog. It's really a lot about motherhood and pregnancy and just real. Like it's very much so we're not focusing just on obedience. We are focusing on how to live a full life with our kids and dogs and not feeling overstimulated and not feeling like we need to separate them 24/7 and just figuring out what works specifically for your family. Every family is different. Every dog is different. Every kid is different. So it's really connecting with moms and dads and helping them feel like there is a resource in the world that will help them get through this really weird transitional phase, because it only lasts a few years, but it can feel like hell. Honestly, if you don't know what you're doing and you're really struggling with a dog who is fearful of children and a toddler who has no care in the world about what they're doing, it
Yep.
can feel really, really isolating and helpless as a parent. So that is why I created the Dog and Baby Bliss program, which is an online course for new and expecting parents. Usually the best thing to do is take the course with the second you find out that you're pregnant. So you can do absolutely everything for this dog to prepare them before this baby comes home. So when the baby comes home, you don't need my toddler course. So
Right.
I created a toddler course for the parents who didn't do the program prior to kind
Sure.
of get through the toddler years because they're hard. They are hard. And again, it goes over every different type of child up to high school and what to expect
Wow.
with kids in general, because they go through some weird phases
Yeah.
of like exploring and like doing weird stuff and just validating that it's okay and it's real, but what are we going to do to fix it at the same time, right?
Awesome.
So yeah, that I have those two courses, and then I am still working on all my online courses that are connected to this book as well. So dog reactivity course, separation anxiety course, resource guarding, potty training, crate training, all that stuff is going to be available through the bonuses of this book as well.
That's amazing. And we'll link all that up for everyone. We'll get the right spelling, but for everyone, it's Jamie, Jaime Caponetta. Jamie, thanks for coming on the show. This was a
Of
great
course.
conversation. So excited for everything that you've done and everything that's to come.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed talking about the process and how amazing it was. I just want to thank your team for making this possible in such a short period of time. Didn't think it would happen, but it really did. It was way easier than I thought it was going to be.
Awesome. We love to hear that. And so everybody, if you are listening to this, make sure to grab a copy of Stop Training Your Dog by Jaime Caponetta. And we will see you on the next episode. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.